Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be looking at the scope and nature of global business. It's the second time I'm doing the lecture because I forgot to switch on my recorder the first time, so I'm a happy camper. Anyhow, so let's look at chapter 2, which you would have dealt with if you were in class, but you may have registered late or who knows what, start late. Okay, so chapter 2 deals with the global political, legal, technological, and natural environment. So basically, it's about looking at the environment outside your organization. Okay, guys, after studying this chapter, you should be able to describe and explain the pestle model. Pestle, basically the same thing. We will be using them interchangeably within the chapter. Discuss the political environment, legal, technological, and natural environment. So basically, guys, we're going to look at 4 of the environments that exist within a business's macro environment. Okay, guys, business environments are highly complex. They are difficult to predict. A good example is at the moment I'm sitting at home. I've been sitting at home for the last 2 months. We could not have predicted what would have happened now. But at the beginning of the year, I'd never said what was going to happen now. In fact, I was somewhat dismissive of the whole COVID-19 issue, etc. And look where we're sitting now. So guys, it's very complex, highly diverse institutional arrangements across countries. For example, guys, Japanese companies in South Africa will, before they invest in South Africa, look at things like what our political stability is there political unrest, they'll look at the economic situation within the country. They'll look at our social cultural environment, how we do things, our work culture, our work ethic, etc. They'll look at the degree to which technology is available. They'll examine the legal framework, the laws of the country, and they will also look at the natural environment and how it is likely going to impact on the business. For example, the probability of natural disasters or will particular natural resources be available to them over the long term. So multinational enterprises have twin imperatives. Okay, on the one hand, guys, they want to provide excellent products for their customers. So they want to provide high quality products that their customers want, desire, etc. But they also need to address institutional challenges across multiple environments, because different countries, different environments, different issues that they have to address. So the pestle model provides a framework for this. Okay. I provided 2 videos for you here. The one is pest analysis.
The global environment of today is much different.
Watch the video. I provide you with the details as per usual for the video. And then I provide a second video, pestle. Pestle can be spelled P-E-S-T-L-E or P-E-S-T-E-L. It's irrelevant. But again, watch the video. It will give you good insights into the issues that are or affect businesses. So I provide you with the details for the video. You can either download from Blackboard. Here's the URL, or you can also get it off YouTube. So, sorry, there weren't questions on the video, but it's rather, I said pause the video. The bottom line is, guys, what is a pestle analysis about? It is about analyzing the macro environment of a business. So, in your first year, I think it was chapter 2 of your textbook, in fact, I'm pretty sure it's chapter 2, since I wrote it, you looked at the business environment. So you had the micro environment, which is inside your business, which the business and management have direct control over. And the micro environment is managing the day-to-day running of the business, etc. Then you've got your market environment where the business trades. So that consists out of their customers, but also their competitors and their suppliers and also their intermediaries. Okay, so the business can influence this market, so they can persuade customers to buy from them, they can offer better products than their suppliers, etc., and they can negotiate with the intermediaries etc. So they can have influence, but the macro environment they have little or no control over, i.e., what happens politically on a global level or even on a national level, you've got very little control over a business, even if you are a massive business. In terms of the economic environment, social, all of those factors you've got very little control over. If you think now we're sitting under lockdown, hopefully when you watch us, you're no longer under lockdown, but I suspect that we will be at that stage still. But the point is, it's very difficult to predict these factors, and we have little, in fact, we have no control over these factors. So we have to try to predict them to some extent in order to plan for them. So my pestle model, political, economic, sociocultural, technological, environment, so natural environment, environment laws, and the legal environment. So it's a way of unpacking a complex environment and arranging different parts of that environment to analyze them. Okay. So firstly, my political environment. Guys, the more a multinational corporation is involved within foreign markets, the more likely it is going to be affected by political issues. So a company operates at the discretion of its local government. So the government basically allows the company to operate or not to operate. So they have to stay in favor with the governments of the country. So the government can, on the one hand, encourage multinational corporations to come to the country. So how would they encourage multinational corporations? So they would offer things like tax breaks or what's it called? Long day, second time I do the lecture. Tax breaks or reduced levies on imports, or they could even pay them, offer them free land or free trade areas, or reduce or subsidize some of their production, etc. So countries may encourage, a good example here is Dubai, that has encouraged many foreign businesses to move there because, or through their free trade zones, so business can basically trade there unhindered, and it has a huge positive impact on the economy in Dubai. Then, countries can also discourage foreign business from coming to them through things like import quotas. An import quota is where they limit the amount of goods that can be imported into a country. So a firm would need to apply for an import permit. For example, Chinese clothes there are import quotas on Chinese clothes coming to South Africa, and businesses that wish to import these clothes need to apply for import permits and can only import so many of these items. What's also important, guys, is government ownership. So if government owns certain industries, it closes off opportunities for private companies to come in there. For example, in South Africa, government owns Eskom, which provides power, and it owns Transnet, which provides rail services, and that means that private power companies from outside South Africa or private rail companies from outside South Africa cannot enter the market. What's also important is the stability of the host country's political environment. So what foreign or multinational corporations look for is more stable markets, because that means that their investment is more likely to be protected. It's less likely that they will lose their investment over the long term. And then you also get issues like national interest promotion. For example, Donald Trump, with his Let's Make or Make America Great Again, has started a trade war with China, claiming that China wrongs them in certain ways. So he's made it more difficult for Chinese goods to enter the American market. So political risk is the undesirable impact of political change on the organization's foreign operations and decision-making processes. So your political risk is impacted on by things like protests and unrest and continual change of governments, etc. This picture might look familiar, but actually it's a protests taking place in France, but you can also look at Hong Kong, where the economy has ground to a halt to a large extent due to protests that took place over the last few months, in fact since last year, relating to democratic rule in the country, etc. And businesses have lost great deals of money because of this. So countries fall on a political spectrum, and the political spectrum within which a country falls will affect the desirability to do business within that country. So on the left-hand side, guys, you've got totalitarian governments. Communism, fascist governments, etc., they control everything. Good example here is North Korea. You've got a leader, an old Kim Jong-un. He controls everything. He makes all the laws. If you irritate him, he might react rather badly to him. There was a news... a news article that he apparently machine gunned his uncle, who said the wrong thing or didn't clap loud enough at one of his meetings or something like that. But also, if you're a North Korean man, I think you have 6 different hairstyles that you have to choose from, all of which are hairstyles that the great leader Kim Jong-un has used at some or other stage. So everything is controlled, and generally foreign business is not welcome in these countries. On the other side of the spectrum is anarchy or total freedom. Here you have countries like Somalia, where the government has lost control over the country, and you have warlords that control different parts of the country. They've got their own little private armies, but you've also got the pirates who hijack or ships that are coming past Somalia and hold them for ransom. So a country like that, it's almost impossible to do business to unless you're an arms dealer or something unsavory like that. So essentially you need systems that are somewhere in the middle, moderate. They've got the United States over there, although they're starting to move somewhat less. But they free market economies, and basically within liberal or free market economies, anyone can do business within a few limitations, but these economies are open to business. They welcome new business into the economy as long as you can compete with the existing businesses within the economy. Okay, so government plays an important role within the political environment. Government can invest money in business. Globally, government's activities account for between 10 and 70% of gross domestic product. So of all money spent within the country, what does government spend that money on? They spend it on things like hospitals and building roads and equipping their army and building schools, etc. So they don't actually do that. What they do is they tender for private companies to do this business for them, and the more government spends, the better it is for the economy in many regards. Okay, so the state also, as we mentioned about the system, embodies the essence of the framework in which exchange occurs. So the state sets up the rules for the economy within the country. And the state should provide predictable and stable environments in which business can grow at the end of the day, because if the market is stable, if the political environment is stable, business can predict what's going to happen tomorrow, and thus it's encouraging them for them to open businesses within these environments. Now, the legal environment. The legal environment relates to the laws of the country. So you've got 3 dimensions: the laws of your local country. So the multinational corporation, let's say it operates from Europe, it has to adhere to the laws that Europe applies to them, which may be in conflict with laws of the foreign country. So let's say, the United States has a law that a company, no matter where it's operating, cannot use child labor. But the Nike, which is an American company, then went to Vietnam, and they used child labor, which was legal in Vietnam, but they could still have problems with their home government. And then you have international law that governs the relationship between countries. So you have different legal systems, guys. So within a country, you can have different types of laws. So common law is the legal system that has been around for so long that common sense dictates what are laws within the system. For example, all of us know we're not allowed to steal or we're not allowed to murder, and these then get codified. So these common laws get written up, but they've been around for as long as humankind has been around. Then you get different laws. For example, English law. You've got various colonial powers, that French, Portuguese law. In South Africa, our law is what is known as Roman Dutch law. So our legal system dates back, it was influenced by the English law, but it's also been influenced by the Dutch, who in turn, their law system or their legal system is based on the Roman law that dates back over 2,000 years, the codes, etc. But you also get various indigenous legal systems such as African laws, etc. And you get Islamic law, so different laws, different rules within different countries. What is the most important about your legal system is that contracts are protected. So because contracts are central to all commercial activities. Every time I buy or sell something, I'm entering into a contract, even if it's only a verbal or a implied contract. For example, you go to the supermarket, you buy a basket full of groceries, you are entering into a contract with that supermarket that you will pay for those groceries when you leave, but also if there's something wrong with those groceries, that you can take it back to the supermarket and exchange it or get your money back. So that is a contract. So contract creates rights and obligations, but it's important that within a country, there's a legal system that supports these rights and obligations. So where disputes occur, that provision is made for arbitration and litigation, so you can go to the courts and sort out disputes that have arisen over contracts. So the question that arises in many instances is which law is applicable. Like in South Africa, we have got our formal legal system, but we've also got African law and we've got Islamic law, which not necessarily complementary to one another. Luckily, we've got something called the Constitutional Court that sorts out these issues for us. Okay. International law is a set of laws that govern relationships between countries. For example, there's various treaties and conventions about trade between countries, but also it covers things like protocols and sanctions. For example, Iran at the moment has various sanctions imposed on it by the United Nations, and if a multinational corporation violates them, they can find themselves in trouble with both the United Nations as well as various countries that have had these sanctions applied to Iran. Okay, very important. Fuller gives us 4 preconditions based on which we can judge a legal system. So you need to ask 4 key questions before you enter a country. So a multinational corporation would look at a country's legal system and ask, number 1, is there a framework of laws? In other words, not ad hoc, changed from time to time. There's a clear framework of laws. So for instance, in South Africa, we have criminal law, we have got law of contract, we've got family law, we've got civil procedure law, we've got law of delict, etc. So you've got all these laws that lay out different aspects or that guide different dimensions of society. But number 2, these laws need to be published. In South Africa, our laws are published in the Government Gazette. You can go online, access the Government Gazette, and you can, therefore, if you want to check something, or if you're allowed to do something, etc., you can go look at the laws of the country. An example of laws is the current regulations and laws that are being published around the lockdown, and which state what you're allowed to do under different phases of the lockdown. Okay. Third role is the laws must be understandable. Third question, are the laws understandable and possible to obey? For example, if you're an alcohol firm and you want to enter into Islamic country, you most likely, if the Islamic country is ruled by what is known as Sharia law, you will be unable to enter that country because you'd automatically be breaking the law, because it would be illegal to sell alcohol in that country. But also, guys, the rules must be logical, and you must be able to obey the laws. So you must know and understand, and that they realistic and logical at the end of the day. And then, guys, very importantly, there must be congruence between the rules and their administration. In other words, the courts and the police must apply the laws of the country, otherwise they are not worth much. One of the very positive things about South Africa is that we still have a legal system that works quite well. So if someone is unhappy, you can go to court, and we've got various courts that go right up to a constitutional court that address issues around whether certain acts are illegal or not. So without the above, foreign investors will be reluctant to invest in a country that does not have a clear legal system that meets all four of these preconditions. Now, the next environment that we look at is a technological environment. So what is technology? Technology is a method or technique of converting inputs to outputs in accomplishing a specific task. As I mentioned to you at the beginning of this lecture, technology got the best of me, as I forgot to put on my recorder in the previous version that I recorded, so you'll notice that the notes differ from the lecture here. But the point is, technology changes the way in which we do things. I am recording lessons for you using a screen recorder. I'm also typing up your notes using Google Documents, and it has got a tool called voice typing, which a couple of years ago I would have had to pay several thousand rand for the software to do it, and it didn't work as well as this voice typing software. So it's a means for accomplishing a task, and technology changes over time. So technological innovation is about the increase in knowledge, skills, or new discoveries. So we get hard and soft discoveries. Hard discoveries are new machines and things, physical discoveries, while soft discoveries relate to methods and processes by which we do things, and things like software. Okay, so hard discoveries examples, guys, your cell phone is an example, but the soft discoveries are all the apps that make our life more simple. I tell you every day about different apps that you could use. You are likely watching this on a computer or even on a cell phone, which is an example of extreme technological innovation, which would not been possible a few years back. So technology can also be labor intensive or capital intensive. So in other words, it can cost lots of money to develop certain things. So some of our soft technologies, we are spending billions of rands trying to develop new vaccines against the COVID-19 virus. So it can be very expensive to innovate and create new things. But technology can also be very labor intensive. For example, you're getting driverless cars. Now, this car is able to drive down the road and interpret the things that it sees in front of it. But behind us, you've got thousands of IT technicians working in India who literally have to enter all of the code that these cars use in order to be driverless at the end of the day. So sometimes it can be a bit of an illusion when you think that technology is not labor intensive. Okay, so new technology has a massive impact on business. It can have positive impacts, guys. For example, the computer technology, I'm able to lecture to you at home. You are able to sit and listen to these lectures wherever you like, doing whatever that was impossible before. So the internet and the World Wide Web and various software programs, but then also medical technology. So I mentioned that we are trying to develop new vaccines against the COVID-19, so to prevent us from catching it in future, and also to develop cures against it, guys. So medical innovation is making our lives better. In fact, the fact that you lived longer than 5 years old is due to vaccines, which were medical innovations. So when your grandparents were around, the chances of you dying before 5 years old were probably something like 1 in 5 or as high as 2 in 5. Today, your chance of dying before you're 5 years old is something like 1 or 2 in 100. So all due to medical innovation. But technological innovation also has negative side effects. For example, you've got nuclear power, which is positive because it enables us to have electricity. Our Koeberg power station in Cape Town is a nuclear power station, but it's also provided for nuclear weapons that have made it possible for countries literally to wipe every last person off the face of the earth. Technology has resulted in huge pollution because of our mass production and the use of all our resources, and resultant problems in climate due to all the carbon dioxide emissions, etc. So, in the global business arena, technology is important for 3 reasons. It's facilitated the process of globalization. Guys, through communication, we're now able to communicate across the earth. I had a WhatsApp call yesterday morning with some people that we met while we were traveling, and they were sitting in America in their lounge. I'm sitting in South Africa in my lounge, and it was basically free except for the few cents that we spent on data for the call. But so it's the communication that technology has facilitated has changed the way we see the world, if you refer back to chapter 1, and also it has resulted in multinational corporations being able to transport goods all over the face of the globe. So it's made it cheaper and more effective to transport goods. So, but at the same time, multinational corporations have facilitated the international or inter-country transfer of technology. For example, McDonald's came to South Africa with their food processing techniques, guys. They're highly efficient. The bottom line is your McDonald's burger is, they've got a manufacturing process that has ensured that if you eat a McDonald's burger in South Africa, Beijing, London, Paris, no matter where, they all taste the same. In my opinion, equally bad, but yeah, that is through inter-country transfer of technology. But then the lack of technological sophistication can also hinder foreign direct investment. So due to increased costs of technology and but because of a lack of technology and a lack of communication infrastructure, etc., it can make it much more difficult to do business and make it much less attractive to do business in that country. There's a little box over here about Gillette. They developed the multi-blade razor, but they decided that not to go ahead with it because they thought it could damage the existing products, which were single blade razors, which people had to replace regularly. So they sold the technology to Wilkinson Sword. Wilkinson Sword then prospered with the technology, and eventually Gillette had to buy the technology back from them. The moral of the story is, if businesses do not stay up to speed and adapt to the latest technological innovations, they are not likely to be around forever, because there's many examples of businesses that have not adapted and no longer are around today. Okay. Technology and developing countries, a key aspect of development is the transfer of technologies, and this affects things like agriculture and healthcare, but it also can become a source of conflict between donor and host nations at the end of the day. For example, China transfers a huge amount of technology to Africa, but it's also linked to a lot of tension in terms of China, because this does not come free, and when nations are unable to service this debt, often they take over things like ports and airports and things like that. And lastly, the natural environment. Why is the natural environment so important? Guys, number one, sustainable development. That means that we need to develop in such a way that we can replace the resources that we are using. And the problem is at the moment we've got unsustainable use of natural resources. So we use more than we can produce, and we're basically killing the earth. So this has led to the creation of various environmental laws aimed at creating sustainable development. Example is the Kyoto Protocol, which aim to reduce carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. It came into force in 2005, but the problem is that America has now withdrawn from the Kyoto Protocol, so it has had rather dire effects on the environment. Another example of impact of the natural environment is the COVID-19 pandemic that we are currently experiencing, and how it has impacted on our lives. So things that happen in the natural environment can impact us in such a way that literally life could come to a standstill because of it, and it is very difficult to predict. So the natural environment has a huge impact on business. Okay, guys, so you've got a case study at the end. Select any company and provide 3 examples of how factors in the political environment would affect it. They want to open in 2 new subsidiaries, one in the USA and the other in Cuba. What would the difference be in the political environment? So you have to go look at what the USA and what the Cuban political environment is. 3 examples of how factors in the legal environment would affect it. How would they be impacted by the political environment if they wanted to open a subsidiary in North Korea? So again, go do some research on Google about North Korea's political environment. How would they judge the laws in Saudi Arabia using Fuller's preconditions? So what is Saudi Arabia's legal system, and how would it match up against Fuller's 4 preconditions? 3 examples of how factors in the technological environment would affect this business, and 3 factors in the natural environment that would impact. Guys, very important, sit down, answer questions for yourself. It doesn't help that you just use feedback. In fact, I'm not going to give you full feedback on these questions. You've got the answers already. I've put up notes for you on Blackboard, etc. But you need to work out how well you understand this, because at the end of the day, guys, this is what you will be examined on at the end of the year. So I will put up a little bit of feedback about this, but it's going to be limited to a couple of the questions. I'm not going to spoon feed you the answers for all the questions. Thanks you, ladies and gentlemen.